Welcome to the Two Blokes Chatting radio show on 94.7 The Pulse. Music, interviews, news, and, well, Two Blokes Chatting. Now, here are the two blokes.
Rob, if you do the honours, please.
Oh, it is indeed. Friend of the show. I think it might be third or fourth time he's come to...
he hasn't learned his lesson, has he?
Come in to chat. We really appreciate it. Snarded boy.
Snarded. St
Kilda footballer. South Bowen footballer. Geelong assistant coach during premiership times and now an assistant coach at Carlton. Dale Amos, good morning.
Morning, boys. Great to be on.
So what's happening for you on a day like this when you're miles away from home in a foreign place, a thing that we refer to as the hub down here? What happens in the hub for an assistant coach? We know the players can run around and do stuff, but what about you? What entertains you?
Well, game day's pretty quiet. We play tonight at the Gabba, so really sort of from late-ish afternoon yesterday for us on a normal week. This is our one reprieve for the week. So some guys will start looking at next week's opposition. For me, I try and this is the one little pocket of time pre-game where I try not to really engage in anything, and it might be a bit of reading, or the boys have been heavily involved in playing cards up here, so might be a bit of cards, and the weather's not too bad, so I might pop out and have a swim this morning at some point, or so it's for me, it's this is the one chance to sort of mentally escape from footy and have a bit of a break, hopefully, so I'm really fresh for tonight, so I can be sharp in the box.
Dale, it's Neil here, and I've got to tell you up front, I'm a Brisbane Lions supporter, so I'll just park that just for the side, but it's just to give you some context. So you go up to Queensland normally once or twice a year for a game. How different from, say, yesterday afternoon till after the game tonight, how different is that period of time compared with a normal visit to Brisbane or Gold Coast?
It's not completely dissimilar, only that we've been here for a period of time. So Probably the thing we've found when we've been in the hub is you become far more accessible, so you tend to spend more time with people. So, there's guys this morning that I'll just catch up with briefly because they just want to go over a couple of things just to make sure they're really clear for tonight. You get those opportunities on interstate trips. It's probably been more so when we've been here in the hub. So, we've had a real challenge, I think, there's been enormous opportunity because we've been able to build relationships and spend a lot of time together. And, for example, with an individual review where you might normally sit for 20 minutes and do what you need to, we've been able to sit for significant amounts of time and spend more time just talking about all sorts of things. So there's enormous opportunity, and we feel like we've really benefited from that. But there's a challenge to make sure you switch off from it and be able to escape it and have a break from it. I think both for coaches and players, that's probably been the most challenging thing since we've been away. Is that chance to be able to escape footy because it's everywhere around you. It's the people, it's the environment, it's all of it.
Just on that, Dale, I know you love talking footy. You're very much a footy head. You've got a great skill at relating to younger players. Have you changed the way you're relating and actually coaching because of the different environment? We know it's an effect on the players, but has it affected you?
Yeah, it has. I think I feel like I've got a far deeper understanding of all the guys, the young guys, but all the players in terms of how they operate, what's important to them. And it's probably less about the footy stuff and be more about the life stuff and the mental side of things. But I've really enjoyed, and there's been enormous benefit in being able to spend time and, talk to Jacob Wiedering and find out, how his family's going and check in and see, make sure his girlfriend's coping okay back home and see how he's dealing with things up here and, talk about his leadership and the growth of his leadership and what he's doing. And, so it's been, I think there's been quite a few chats I've had, in terms of review and chance to be able to put the game into context, which have included no vision at all, and they've just been conversation and a chance to be able to get a deeper understanding for them of me and me of them. I think that's probably been the biggest shift.
Because I think it's a really positive message I'm hearing from you, and clearly there's a bit of talk down in this part of the world, you'll be surprised now, about the advantages that the two Queensland sides have had in this season because of the fact they haven't had to travel as much and all that kind of stuff. But I would have thought for them, much of what they're doing is pretty similar to normal. You're I'm pleased to hear that you're looking at this as an opportunity to grow the player relationship and take someone like Jacob and really get to know where he's coming from, because he's, 22, 23. For him, he'd be looking for some parental guidance, because normally they'd walk out the door at 4 o'clock on a Monday afternoon, you wouldn't see him again till lunchtime Tuesday or whatever. That's surely got to be a choice that you've made, and a choice that I would have thought is a massive advantage to the 16 sides that aren't based in Queensland.
Yeah, I think Tiggy did a great job when we first knew we were going away. I think he addressed the idea that the experience was going to be very different for everyone, and that's been a really important point, because while some guys have thrived, some guys have found it really difficult. Some guys have had, girlfriends back in Melbourne who have been really struggling on their own. Some guys have had families who they've been really close with, and all of a sudden they're away from. We had players who were away from family for an extended period of time. So I think understanding that was really important for us from the start. And the other thing he did really well was set it up that this is an unbelievable opportunity that we may never get in our lifetime again, to be able to embrace it, enjoy it. We've learned a lot about our playing group, and most of it's been unbelievably positive. We played against Fremantle, and Jack Nunes kicks a goal after the siren, one of the most unbelievable games I've ever been involved in terms of the way it finished. And the next day we're flying back to the Gold Coast, so we catch the bus back from the ground to the hotel where we're staying, and Patrick Cripps and Sam Doherty and all the players are there packing bags and loading equipment onto the truck, because that's what needs to happen for us to be able to get out before they even go and have something to post the game after an unbelievable game like that. So I think we've become more reliant on each other. I think we've certainly learned a lot in terms of character about we've got some great people at our footy club, and it's been great to see some of that really shine through. So we've embraced it as a great opportunity. Like I said, hopefully it's a once in a lifetime opportunity for us to be able to experience something like this, but it's certainly a positive one, that's for sure.
Let's go back all the way to January, February. I was asked to pick a final 8. I had Carlton in, so I imagine that you as a match committee would have had that as a minimum target for the year. You probably played well enough to have achieved it, but a couple of close losses have it's taken away eight pretty vital points from you. So in the wash-up, are you looking at this year of being slightly disappointing, miss out in finals, but as a development year, a real success?
Yeah, I think if you assess the year, we had a really flat, tired-looking performance last week. Which is not an hour, but we had it looked like the accumulation of quite a few really short turnarounds and some really close games in the lead up. We did 4 weeks of really close games, and last week was the one sort of exception for the year. We had a second half against Hawthorn that was poor from our point of view. Our effort wasn't good enough. Barring those two little either periods or total games, we've been unbelievably competitive. Our effort's been great. We've been in every game and given ourselves a chance to win, and often been, come from a fair way down to be able to put ourselves in a position. So I think we have a really resilient group. I think we have a group with great character, and we have a group that's willing to turn up and compete pretty much every week. What we haven't been able to do is we haven't been able to connect well enough going inside 50 as a team. We haven't been able to hit the scoreboard and kick straight enough. And those two things, if you probably strip it back and make it really simple, are probably the two things that have cost us the most throughout the year. That the energy you get, the momentum you gain from being able to hit the scoreboard, and when it's your turn and you have some momentum to be able to really make the opposition pay, is probably our biggest area of growth, as we head into the off season. So I think the foundation is there. I think that we've seen some significant improvement from the guys that we wanted to, the Wiederings and the Walshes and the Setterfields and the Fishers. We've seen enormous growth in those guys, which is where our improvement's going to come from. So, we were in a position where we could have pushed for finals. Weren't able to quite get it done, but we certainly viewed the year positively in terms of that effort and competitiveness the group's shown.
Just a couple of players I want to touch on. Wiedering's one, because his first year, highly touted, obviously, came to your club, was really good, and then he sort of faded away a little, didn't reach the heights we expected, but he would be back to expectations now. What do you reckon happened with him in those middle years of his formation?
Look, he had an exceptional first year. It's very rare for a key position player to come in and play every game like he did and perform at the level that he did and be able to play on key forwards the way he did in his first year. I think he'd be the first one to admit that probably he was able to get by with what he had. Sort of worked a lot on trying to encourage him to grow his game and work on his game and build his game. But it's a pretty hard sell when you're 18 years old and you're playing really well at AFL level. His second year, he played a bit forward and got thrown around a little bit and really struggled to recapture that form, I think. And then his third year, he sort of probably fell away. What has happened is he trains harder than anyone else. He competes stronger than anyone else. He works on his game as well as anyone else. And he's grown his game to a level now where there's a consistency in what he does week in, week out. And it's off the back of all the work he does at training, the work he did during pre-season, and the confidence he's been able to instill in himself. So I think he and Liam Jones have been unbelievably positive for each other because they've been able to push each other. They take each other on and drive each other at training all the time. So I think that they've both been really influential in each other. So, I think it's a natural maturity and growth and him understanding himself and working through a little bit of adversity and coming out the other side, which is, when you're dealing with 19, 20, 21-year-olds, is not to be completely unexpected. So he's had an exceptional year and certainly pushing for all Australian honours this year, which is a great credit to him.
And potentially the fact that he's been put into an environment this time where his entire focus is footy, it may be one of the ones that's had a positive influence on being pushed into the circumstances that he's found himself in this year. Yeah,
potentially. I think his pre-season, the position he was in, he was going to have a great season no matter what. I felt like he'd done the work. I felt like he was in a fantastic position to have, a fantastic season. He'd done everything he needed to play at a really high level. So that was all him. That was his attitude. That was his approach. That's the way he embraced it. And he's reaping the rewards from that and being able to perform well really consistently.
The other fellow is Cade Simpson, who's probably never going to make a Carlton team of the century, and outside of the club he'll probably be forgotten about within a couple of years because he's quiet and just goes about his game in a very simple and systematic manner. But internally within your organisation, he must have been gold during your time there.
Yeah, I love Simo. I love who he is. I love what he represents. He turns up and gets his job done. He's no fuss away from footy. He's quite a private person. And he's a real heart and soul type of player. He turns up and competes every single week. We watched some highlights of him yesterday. That's the thing that stands out. He doesn't take weeks off. He doesn't play at a substandard level. He competes every single week, and you don't get to 341, about to be 342 games without doing that. I think he's always been a professional in terms of the way he prepared, how he's gone about getting his body ready to be able to perform and the way he trains. But the thing I've loved the most in my time working with him is I've seen him at his age, at the stage of his career that he always had an appetite to learn and want to get better. He's become a better leader. He's become a better mentor. I think he's become a better player. I think he's grown and become a better person. I sat with him the other day and asked him if he wanted to review his game, and he couldn't have said yes quick enough. He just wanted to sit and watch and learn something from the game. That's who he is, and that's why he's played at the level he has. He's an unbelievable character. He's revered within the four walls of the footy club, and we're really bullish that we'll play at a high level to hopefully to represent what he's done over his entire career tonight.
I reckon there's a bit of parallel there with him and Corey Enright.
Yeah,
I was going to go Darren Milburn, so it was an interesting question that we asked because they're both very private people and just go about their work, and you work closely with both of them at Geelong as well. Are they similar ilks, all three?
Yeah, I think so. I think the Boris one's is a good comparison. One of the things that stands out is everybody wants to earn Simo's respect. He's quiet. He's in his demeanour. He has a small group of people that he really trusts, and it's bloody hard to get in there. You know, you have to earn the right to be inside that inner sanctum of people that he really trusts. And you know, he's the type of personality that as coaches and as players, we've kind of probably all been striving to, you know, gain his acceptance because of what he's been able to do. And yeah, look, phenomenal people. That's first and foremost. I think that's why they're so revered. You know, it's a bit about the footy, but as much about the people that they are, and he and Boris are very similar like that.
And I think the other thing is too, Carlton has been through a bit of turmoil in terms of its coaching over the last 10 years, and to have someone like that there to provide the glue that's often provided by the coaching team, I would have thought would be invaluable, particularly as some of those fringe players who, you know, are not a Mark Murphy who's a walk-up start in a squad, but some of those kids that are around the edges, I would have thought having someone like that just to pull it together during some tumultuous times would have been pretty important.
Yeah, no doubt about that. His experience, like I said, his competitive nature is infectious in terms of what he gives and what he expects from those around him. And the thing he's really grown with is he's taken on a real mentor teaching role with, you know, Cam Paulson and Sam Petrescu-Seaton and Tom Williamson, and you know, he will review the game with them. He will prepare in terms of the opposition with them. He will work with them on the track. You know, that selfless sort of mentality, that mentoring, coaching, teaching sort of mentality is something in my time that I've seen him add, and it will you know, will help him to leave a legacy at the footy club, because he'll feel heavily invested and should feel heavily invested. And like he's played a significant part in those players as their careers start to progress.
Speaking of heavily invested, mentioned to a lot of acquaintances of yours this week that you were going to be on the show, and the question that come back was, well, if you were pleased that you were still working at Carlton because it had gone away, they weren't quite sure where you were, what you were doing, but are you feeling very comfortable in the organisation? Because an assistant coach's life is a pretty shaky one, but are you comfortable that you'll be there for some period of time?
The world has definitely changed. I went from being an assistant coach to landscaping and you know, doing irrigation in yards for a period of time. So I think there's always been uncertainty. You know, typically, you know, assistant coaches will live on 2-year contracts, nothing more. So you do have some uncertainty, but you know, I'll be the footy club next year, and I have a fantastic relationship with Tigi, and I'm really bullish about where we are and where we're going. So I'm optimistic, but without any real certainty, the same as everybody else in footy. I think that you know, the soft cap has come down, and you know, footy departments are going to shrink. So it's not an easy time to be in footy, but it's I'm really fortunate that I'm certainly still in there at the moment.
So, and without giving away anything that you can't give away, and I'm not probing, obviously, I'm really an opposition supporter spy, you understand. You've got a group of 22 blokes who are going to go out wearing a navy blue jumper tonight. That it's fair to say from the outside, they've got nothing to play for except Kate Simpson's last game, up against a team that is going to finish in the top 2, potentially top if things fall the right way. They've been away for how long? You know, 3 months, whatever. How do you get a group of young blokes up to play footy one last time before they can get on a plane and go home?
Yeah, well, I mean, the Simo one is obviously there, given it's his last game and what he's been able to do for the footy club. We're trying to build who we are as a footy club, and tonight's another opportunity to do that. And we feel like we've competed at a really high level throughout the year. We've lacked a little bit of polish at stages, but we've certainly competed, and our expectation is that we turn up and do that again. You build your reputation, you build your brand off what you do every single week, and it's a ruthless game, AFL footy. So we get another opportunity. We relish the chance to be able to play against a top 2 side. It's great for our group to be able to do that. Brisbane, who have been outstanding all year and are going to play a huge part in the finals this year. It's a great opportunity for us. So that's the way we viewed it. That's kind of the way we viewed, I guess, every game each week this year. So I'd be, I'm quietly optimistic that our motivation levels will be relatively high to go and perform really well. So hopefully that's the case.
Dale, you are a big man on footy club and characters, personalities, friendships, and I thought there was a great example of why we love footy last week when Mark Murphy and Cade Simpson chaired Bryce Gibbs off. I've been stunned at some of the views of people about it, including your coach, who thought it wasn't a good look. I thought it was a fantastic look and says a lot about what the game's really about. How did it sit with you?
Look, I think the whole COVID situation has brought the footy industry far closer together. I've seen games played in Brisbane with Richmond and Melbourne and Essendon and Carlton players playing in mixed teams and just loving being able to play, high-fiving each other. I'll never forget Alec Markov playing in a Carlton jumper and just being rapt to be out there playing, and I think as an industry we've become much closer because of that, and I think it's a really positive thing. I think players smiling on the field is not an indication that they don't want to compete. It's that they're in this together and they're sharing the experience, and there's a great sense of empathy for the opponent that's across from them for the experience that they're going through at the moment. So I think the footy industry has matured and become much closer. I think it's been a really positive thing. I don't think anybody's competed any less fiercely because of any of those things. I think you're clutching at straws if you're thinking that's the case. So, to suggest that Mark Murphy and Kate Simpson didn't compete at their absolute best because they were thinking about sharing Bryce Gibbs off, I think you got your head in the clouds. So. I've seen it as a positive. I think as an industry we've really grown in that space, and I think it's been a really positive thing.
I think also we see it after the game. That players beat each other up for 2 hours, and then at the end of the game they go and have a chat. And I haven't seen you since I played with you in the Chargers or wherever it was. And it really is a funny thing for people who aren't involved in the industry. But I think it's great, and particularly with things like free agency and so many people moving between clubs. Lincoln McCarthy, after the Geelong game last year, we put a dagger through the heart of Geelong, 3 seconds before the game finished. Then everyone's come over and pat him on the back afterwards. To me, it's just one of the great things about footy.
Yeah, it is good. Dale, one last question. Do you have a nickname within the Carlton Footy Club? Does no one refer to you as Dale?
No, the boys. There's a funny story. They've called me Killer. The boys. For my very first start at the footy club, I was doing some boxing with Dylan Buckley. I'd only been there maybe 2 weeks, and I was boxing and he had the mitts, and he asked me if I had a nickname, and simply because I was boxing, I said, they call me Killer. And we finished, and I told Bucks that actually wasn't true, that I just made that up. It was a spur of the moment thing, and it grew legs, and it's kind of stuck, and it's one of those things it's just there, unfortunately. So the boys call me Killer.
The reason I ask is that the young fellow O'Brien who debuted with you last week has a connection to brother Des, and Des asked him if he'd crossed paths with you and what he thought of Dale Amos, and the kid O'Brien had no idea who Dale Amos was, and Des said, he must have got the sack. Perhaps he's not at Carlton anymore, but if he had said, what do you think of Killer, he probably would have got a different answer by the sound of it.
Possibly, yeah. No, the boys have run with it, and it's stuck. It's one of those funny stories. It just happened. It just unfolded that way.
Yeah. And young Mr. O'Brien is now going to be summoned and explain who Dale Amos was. And the other nickname that you threw into the conversation there, Dylan Buckley, calling him Bucks. Did it take you long to come up with that one?
No, it's not overly creative, is it?
Dale, thank you so much for your time. In better times, when you get home, we look forward to having you back in the studio for a chat, because I still think that my most enjoyable time doing this job was when you and Andre Borovic were in the studio chatting about the differences but similarities between coaching football and cricket at the highest level. It was just a fascinating chat, and I look forward to more of them when you get home, but really appreciate your time. Good luck tonight, and I mean that genuinely. I'd love to see you win and make sure Brisbane stay where they are, and we'll deal with them in the preliminary final. Thanks, mate.
No, thanks, boys. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Dale.